And take it away, Darcy.
Well, let's see.
You're going.
Okay, I'm Kathy Goodwin, real alcoholic from Salem, Virginia, next to Roanoke. Got to tell you something about one of our resentments that we have in Salem. We say that Salem is, our own little community. And a lot of times when I go to different meetings in Roanoke, I say, well, we'll have the drawbridge down and we'll let you in if you'd like to come. And there's a little thing goes on there between Roanoke and Salem. We've got excellent AA in the Roanoke Valley. I'm so grateful to be here. And this is a Serenity Improvement Group. What a great name for a group. Just when we think we got it together, we can always improve it. And that is for certain. My sobriety date, I don't know if you all give them here. Sometimes we do in Salem, sometimes we don't. But by the grace of God, I've been here for 28 years and 11 months, and I'm coming up on an anniversary in April. And what's amazing with the God that I have learned in the program, he's had me speak once every month for the last 5 months to keep me on track. He's also had me going to other meetings that I wouldn't normally go to because you all want to keep me sober. I ought to tell you about all that, but I ought to get, I guess, the background of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I don't like to keep looking back all the time, but my sponsor keeps me doing the steps that we talk about, the miracle steps, and that we have to keep going over them again and again. I was brought up in AA that we didn't just work the steps one time and one and done. And I was very blessed that I fell into a nest of old timers. And they said, when you go, you've got to go back and look at what you were like so you can see how far you have come. And that's true, especially when you're picking up a chip. And I got to ask Stephen something. I got a bunch of stuff on my screen, weather apps, top news, something. Can I get rid of that for a minute? Oh, there you are. Okay, so I can see. There you are. I can now see you. Okay, couldn't see anybody. I do want to thank my peeps that came from Roanoke and Salem. And I also, one of my sweet ladies that has kept me sober, really kept my nose to the grindstone because I have a sponsee and she's here tonight and she just picked up a 1-year tip by the grace of God and working the steps, and she's done it. And I'm so grateful that she's here and doing the deal. She's even spoken in front of over 200 people on the Pacific group, the PG and Chill group, and did a marvelous job. So, it works if you work it. But anyway, I'm originally from, and you probably tell, not a true Southerner. I will let you know that. I try to be one. I try to be a Southern lady. And I'm from Schenectady, New York, and Schenectady was the home of General Electric. And my father was transferred down here when I was 15 years old. And it was right in the middle of the beginning of the end to segregation. And they were opening up the schools down here. And we had no problem in Roanoke. They did it very peacefully. But I was always appalled that they had fountains labeled as white and colored, and different restrooms, different restaurants, and all that kind of stuff. And because in Schenectady, I didn't know race, and I still don't know race. I figure we're all brothers and sisters in the Lord, and that's what counts. So anyway, I wound up going to Jefferson High School in Roanoke, and they always made fun of my Yankee accent. So I took a class in speech because they said, we can't understand you. So you need to be able to take a speech class. So I learned how to talk Southern, but yet it's sort of hard. I'm trying to show, if you see these roses back here, okay? See those roses? That was given to me by one of my sisters in the program who finally got on because I think I gave her the wrong number. And let her know that they did come. This is my belly button birthday night. And I'm 80 years old. And I wouldn't be 80 years old except for Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. And I know it. I'd either be locked away in an institution or have been long dead. Anyway, got here to Roanoke and I learned how to talk. And Michael knows that. I can talk Southern, can I, Michael? And I say y'all with the best of them. So I also took debating, so that I could debate you people. Because deep down within me, I never felt like I was good enough, not knowing that that is one of the traits of being an alcoholic. My parents, my mother was Polish, which is making it really difficult with what's going on in the world for me because we have family over there in that area. And my father was Irishman, a Black Irishman. And I'm second generation American. And I'm so grateful that God put me in a country that where AA started because well, I won't go into that right now. Anyway, I was told that my parents never drank much, but I was told that we had drinking on both sides of the family. And we had an uncle that died of alcoholism. And I had cousins and aunts and uncles that also drank. And so they would always say to me, now, Kathleen, and my real name is Ann Kathleen Callahan. Okay. And they said, well, now when you start going out stuff, you don't want to be drinking and you definitely don't want to be smoking. And you were a good girl. And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm a good girl. And then I never could call my mother ma'am. She said, I'm not your ma'am. I'm your mother. And I said, okay, mother. And by the way, you can laugh at my talk. I don't mind because I laugh at myself. Have to. But I was a very serious lady. I was straight A student. I wanted to be accepted by these Southerners so I could become one. And so I did everything I could to get in, to fit in. And I never really drank, but I still had all the traits of an alcoholic. I would lie, cheat, and steal, whatever I needed to do to have you accept me. So I graduated ahead of my class. Now, and I thought, well, not realizing that people don't really like smart people. They rather have some people that they run around. So anyway, my father had a heart attack when I was a senior in high school. So I couldn't go to, I had been accepted at Duke University, and that's in North Carolina, because I wanted to be a doctor. That was the other thing. I was driven to be a doctor. I knew that that's God wanted me to have a doctor. But before I get too much further, when I was 12 years old in Schenectady, I had a spiritual experience with God. I felt God speak to me within my heart and said, Kathleen, called me by name and said, you are mine. And I felt that. And when I finally came to AA and read it in the big book, where it said, within every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God, I knew exactly what you were talking about, because that kept me going for many, many years. And that I knew I did have a God that loved me. Well, when I had to stay here when my father had his heart attack, and because my mother didn't drive, and I had to take her back and forth. And I'm grateful that I did. I went to Roanoke College in Salem, and a bunch of people, and guess where the Northerners sent their kids to become softened and Southernified? They sent them to Roanoke College to get them so that they could be more acceptable. And a lot of them wound up staying. A lot of my friends did. That's when I started being the designated driver. I didn't drink much. I didn't like beer occasionally. And that's what, you drank in college. And so they would have me drive them around and we'd go to the parties. And I loved the parties and I felt like I fit in, but not quite. It wasn't until I was a senior in college that I met the man of my dreams. And it was on a blind date. And he showed up at the door and he was the dirty, nasty auto mechanic at the local dealership. And I thought, well, this is really something. Here I get this guy. Well, anyway, he was the son of the owner, and his owner was a prominent member of Salem society. They were a very wealthy family in Roanoke, in Salem. But he was just a down, good old boy. He was a good old Southern boy, hunting and fishing and guns and all that kind of good stuff. And after our first night, I went home and went in the door, and I told my friend who had stayed with me that night, I said, I'm going to marry him. He knows how to kiss. All right. So we went out the second time we went out. He picked me up and he said, I'm going to take you to the Passion Pit. Now, you youngins probably wouldn't know this, but some of us older people remember the drive-ins. You know, remember the drive-ins? You go in the drive-in. So yeah, I saw Karen raised her son. And so we went in there, and he sent me up to the stand to get a couple of containers of pop, as they call it, Coke. And I came with popcorn, came back to the car, and he pulls a bottle out from under his seat. He said, now I'm going to teach you how to drink like a lady, a real Southern lady. So he poured some of that in. And I don't remember much after that for that night. And that's when I traded the God of my childhood for the God known as man. And that was the husband that I wound up marrying later on down the road. We couldn't get married after I graduated from college, and my father was still fairly ill. I had to stay in the area, so I wound up being the chief chemist for the city of Roanoke for a time. And then I didn't like that, and I went back to school while I was still working, and did not do any drinking then while he was gone in service. He had to go to Vietnam. He was in Germany. He never got all the way over there, thanks be to God. And he lost a lot of friends in that war. And when he came home, first thing he did was move me from Roanoke to Salem. And he said, you're going to be a Salem matron, and you're going to be doing, and no wife of mine is going to be working anymore. And at that time, I'd gone into teaching, and I was a teacher of chemistry, physics, and math. So I was still fairly intelligent. But he did teach me how to drink. And that our whole marriage was wrapped around drinking. We ran with the crowd that drank, had a lot of fun. I'm not one of those that the first time I took a drink, I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew it worked. It became my God. Just like the big book talks about. So it was never a problem until it became a problem. And alcohol chemically is a solvent, and it'll dissolve pretty much about everything. And it dissolved my marriage. It dissolved the love of my 3 daughters for me. We had 3 girls. It dissolved the love of my dogs for me. And that was one of the things that got me. And I know you all probably think this is really crazy, but when your dogs won't even come near you, you know that you are sick. You are sick. And I thought, I lost the love of my dogs. To heck with this. So in the meantime, in this marriage, I tried to kill myself 3 times. I was unsuccessful, obviously. And the God that I understand today stopped me and made me wake up each time and say, no, you don't want to do that, because I was a depressive also. For a period of 5 years, I was on Mother's Little Helper that Beatles talk about, and that's called Valium. And I was on that when they didn't even think you could be addicted to it. So I went on that until I started where it wouldn't work, and I started drinking on the Valium. And a little voice finally said, and I think it was a spirit of God saying, you can't do this. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do this. So I gave up the Valium and drank more. I got more alcohol in. All along, and looking back, when I've done inventories, I see how God was still with me all the time, even when I turned my back on him. And I continually say that anything that I do today is for his honor and glory. How I got here was that third attempt at a suicide. I was in my bedroom. I had gone down to a very fancy department store that we used to have in Roanoke. It's called Mill and Rhodes. They used to have one in Richmond. And I got a beautiful negligee, and I bought some silk sheets, and I went to the liquor store because you couldn't buy, it's all. Well, I went to the liquor store and got some wine, some really good wine, because I finally learned to drink like a lady. I was a winette. I love the wine. And every time people talk about wine, men always say, "Oh, I couldn't take that." Well, I like vodka and whiskey too, but I always felt like I wasn't really a bad person if I'm drinking wine nicely in the proper glass, that kind of thing. The insanity of my addiction is just crazy. So I'd gotten all that, and I got ready, and I got a bunch of pills from doctors, and I was in that room, and I had two Siberian Huskies at that time. And one came in the door, opened the door with her paws because I thought I'd locked it. I'd gotten my daughters gone somewhere. And while I was up on that bed, that dog, Yasha, jumped on the bed, and it was a water bed, and she knocked the bottle and the pills all on the floor. And while I was down on the floor, scrounging around, I said, "Oh, God, please help me." I said the alcoholic prayer. I don't know where that came from. And the next thing I don't know where it came from was Paul, this dear friend of mine that I hadn't talked to for 6 months. Her father was one of my doctors because I skipped over being in the hospital stays, for pancreatitis and gastritis and all those little things that alcoholics get. Except I got to tell you, when I'd go to a hospital, I'd take 2/5 of vodka in my suitcases. And then the doctors couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting any better. Because after I see the doctor in the morning, I go in and get a couple shooters, and go get into bed. And then I'd go throw up and all that kind of good stuff. Oh, see what you do to me. You make me remember how really bad it was. It did get to be bad. And I don't have to live. And I have not lived that way for many, many years. The night that I was trying to kill myself, God intervened. And the person I called, her father and his wife, who became one of my sponsors, my sweet Alice, were members of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know it. And they were talking to me. They were going to see if they could get me in a hospital or get me into a treatment center. Because they said, "You need to do something like that." I said, okay. I was willing to go to any length. As what happened, everything was closed. Everything was full up. And so they started talking about this program called Alcoholics Anonymous. And they told me about it and what you go in and you sit down and you just be quiet and everything's fine. And hopefully you don't take a drink before you go, And I said, okay, I'm willing, whatever. That they did a 12-step call on me on the phone because I would not let them come to my house. It was filthy. I have a very nice house, but it was dirty, filthy. I didn't want them to see me. But I still talk to them. They talked to me off and on all weekend. That was, before Zoom, before cell phones even. That was the good old dial-in ones. And I finally said, okay. So they were going to pick me up on a Monday night at a certain time. I think it was 7:30. And Dr. Bob said to me, can you try not to drink, that today, or tomorrow. So we were going tomorrow, and try not to drink just one day. And no, we'll get you. We'll come anyway, no matter what, but just try not to drink. And so in my mind, I heard him say, just try not to drink as much. Okay. So I was drinking 2/5. So I figured, well, if I only drink 1/5, it's better than, I've tried. So I got into my old jeans jumper, which I thought was really sexy and really sharp, which had the cigarette holes and the burn stains and the wine stains on it. And thought, well, I put some makeup on best I could. But I did go, and I was pretty well under the influence of alcohol and this disease. And I thought, well, they pulled up, and I said, I got to go out there. They've gone to all the trouble to do this. And I was raised to have good manners. So I said, all right, I'll go. They had to carry me into the car because I couldn't walk straight. I was what we call in the South, knee walking drunk. Maybe they all say it up here. I don't know. They get me in the car and they take me out into what I thought was the country because I was still teaching. I was very aware of anonymity. I knew that if anybody knew in Salem that I was going to an AA meeting, I'd probably lose my job. So but they carried me in. They got on either side of me and levitated me into this room. And you did what all ANAs do. That group was full of old timers. The average length of sobriety in that group was probably 35 years. We had 35, 40, 45. Some members even knew Dr. Bob and Bill. I couldn't, you can't plan something like that. And I thought, I didn't find out till later, but I just thought they're a bunch of drunks. Well, they all look nice. And, you clean up good, you look good, you sound good. And they did that first step for me. I didn't know really what a first step was, or second, or 12, or anything. But they did the good old AA and did the first step for the newcomer. And looking back now, I can remember the glint in their eyes, and they're probably saying, oh boy, we got a fresh one. We got a live one. Let's do this. Okay. And I love it when I work with newcomers. I really do. Some days not so good, but most of the times I do. And they did the first step. And what I heard, though, was that you don't have to live like this anymore. You don't have to be a victim of alcohol and pray to it. And they gave me hope. That's the first time I'd had any hope for years that I could really fit in my own skin and I could be a member of society the way the God that I'll understand when I went here and learn how to live life on life's terms and then try to help others. That it was a program to help people. And I did like to help people, even under the influence. I'd go out and drink with anybody if it would help them. Well, we can't do that anymore. So after that meeting, I went home and Alice, my sweet Alice, and Dr. Bob. This Dr. Bob is a Roanoke Dr. Bob, but he knew the original Dr. Bob. And they said, now, when you go home, try to get all the alcohol out of your house. They were going to come in and do it for me. And I said, no, I can do that. I'll do that. And I had sobered up pretty much by that time. And I had one daughter had come home from a sleepover. She didn't want to stay, so somebody brought her home. And I walked in the room, in the house, and she looked at me and she said, what's going on? And I said, well, I went to a meeting and I want to get rid of all the alcohol in the house. And she said, are you serious about this, Mama? And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. And she went and found bottles of wine that I hadn't opened that were really nice bottles of wine. I mean, expensive ones. And we poured them out. She had me pour them out. And she said, well, I'll be here all night if you need me. She was 14 at the time. And the biggest grin came on her face. And she said, I love you, Mama. And I hadn't heard that for years. And she said, I love you, Mama, today on a Zoom call. And she said, I can't believe you're 80 years old. And she said, I love you. And my other daughter, too. And the third one, by the way, the middle child, is still out there in the bushes, trying to keep her off the streets. That's another whole entirely different story. That's an Al-Anon matter. But I love all of them. Anyway, when it got to be 2:00 in the morning, I started shaking so bad I couldn't stand it. And I wound up on the floor again, and I cried out to the God that I understand today. God, please help me. No conditions, no nothing. Whatever you need to do it. do it. And he took the compulsion to drink out of me immediately. I felt it go. While I was on the floor, I felt cold. I don't know if you know how evil feels. For me, it feels like a cold and filthy thing. When I was on that floor and God came into that room to me, who was in my heart, I felt like someone had put a warm blanket around me. And I felt safe the first time. And I hope other people have that. I've since read the spiritual experience in the back of the book. I know a lot of people have an educational variety and have to go through that. I was 51 years old when I finally got here and listened to the God that I'd always known. And that's why I say I'm amazed that I would get to the age that I am today, that God still has a purpose for me. And my purpose is to be of maximum service to him, not only in Alcoholics Anonymous, but to be in the world and be around my fellow human beings, which I didn't much like anyway. So then I started on the road completely dedicated to Alcoholics Anonymous, except when they took me to that first meeting, okay, at that time, you had to have been to 2 meetings and you had to be sober, okay? And Alice shook her head and Dr. Bob shook her head. I couldn't pick up that little white plastic, okay? And I got my first resentment against AA. I said, well, I will not drink just to show those blankety blank people that I can have a piece of that plastic and I'll go to another meeting. Well, it took me 2 days to do that. And they came and picked me up and took me to this other meeting, which became my home group. And so I'm sitting there and I'm shaking badly. I sobered up in AA, went through all the shaking. And when they came time to give out the chips, they said, we offer you a white chip if you just have a desire to stop drinking. And I thought, daggone it. I didn't say that in my mind. I said worse words. And I couldn't even stand up to get the white chip. And they brought it. My dear, dear friend Bill Jones brought it to me and gave it to me and said, welcome home. Welcome to the family. We've been waiting for you. And that's what I've felt ever since. You are my family. And I hope to do good for the family and that I'm always trying to help and serve and show the love that was so freely given to me. In Alcoholics Anonymous, back in the day, they got you into service immediately. And I wasn't even, I think, 2 weeks sober. And this one gentleman, they said, well, you're gonna help the group. I said, yes, ma'am. You know, I was willing to do anything. Oh, I gotta tell you one thing. One time Alice and I were talking and I said to her, you know, I would run down the street and naked for you for AA. And she said, no, Kathleen, you're supposed to keep your clothes on when you're here. Okay. Because I would go to bars and I'd take my clothes off, you know, that I never got arrested, but you know, and so I'm telling you tales which are true. And I don't do that anymore. Alice put a big book. She loaned me her big book. I gotta tell you that. That's another trick. These sponsors that I've had over the years, they go to wherever the sponsorship school is for AA. They all go to the same school and they all tell you the same stuff and they all use the same tricks. And what she had done was she said, now this is my own big book. This is our program. This is the way you're going to learn to live. It's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the program. He said, and we're going to start reading it and studying it, but I'm going to let you take mine home so you can start reading ahead because I know how intelligent you are and I know you want to know what's going on. You know, appealing to my vanity because I still had a little bit of that. So I took it home. She said, but now, the thing was, she said, now, if you decide you don't want this, you've got to come back to another meeting in order to bring me the book. I'm not going to come back and get it. You have to bring it back to me because it's mine. And so she tricked me into reading the book and also making sure I went to another meeting, and they came and picked me up again. These people took turns. One night, one person would call me up and say, well, Mac's going to come pick you up for the meeting. We just want to take you to different meetings so you can see what's going on. And they said, now be ready at whatever time it was, usually 7:30, and we'll pick you up. And they'd hang up before I could give them an excuse about why I couldn't go to the meeting. I've never worked with my girls, but, and then the next night it'd be somebody else taking me. And another person would take me. I couldn't drive myself to a meeting for about 6 months because, and it wasn't until I had gotten that sober that I realized I was always drunk by the time it was time to go to a meeting before. I couldn't have gone to a meeting. I never picked up, I have not had to pick up another white chip in all my years. I have been mentally screwed up some days and spiritually disconnected, but I haven't picked up that white chip. When I picked up that 30-day chip, it was 29 days before the 30. And I called Alice up and I said, Alice, I said, I'm thinking about drinking. She said, no, you're not. You're not. I said, yes, I am. She said, well, then you haven't been doing your prayers, have you? And I said, no, ma'am, I didn't. She taught me that I should throw my slippers under the bed and go down on my knees in the morning and to get them. And while I'm down there, take the first 3 steps. Didn't know what the first 3 steps were. They told me to read it out of the book. And it was the 24-hour book, if some of y'all remember that. It was a Hazelton book, unapproved literature, but that was before daily reflections. So I would get down on my knees and I would pray to that God that I still didn't want to know me and that I was learning about. And things, and do my meditation. She taught me to meditate. She taught me to be quiet. She taught me to, she taught me everything that has saved my life. And they have both since passed. They were 54 years sober when they both died. They died within 3 months of each other. But one thing, when she was dying, I went to see her and she held my hand. She said, I'm not going to see you again here. I'll see you on the other side. She said, you make sure you get yourself another sponsor immediately. And I said, yes, ma'am. And I said, but how will I know? I said, there'll never be anybody like you. She said, you never put a sponsor on a pedestal. You can love us, but we're right there with you on the path, that we trudge together. And so she said to me, you will know the person because you will see it. And I went to my home group meeting one night and there was a lady that had come in to the meeting and was an old timer. And I was sitting in a chair and she walked in front of me and stopped and looked at me. And she said, Kathy, she said, well, I'm so glad that you are here. And I saw this aura around her. And I knew that was the one to be my next sponsor. And it was. And when I asked her, she said, oh, no, you don't want me. And I said, yes, ma'am. You got the light around you. And she said, okay. I've never been without a sponsor. I wouldn't do it the same as if I wouldn't try not to breathe air. I think sponsorship is vital in this program. And I think it's vital to listen to your sponsor, even when you don't like what they're saying to you, because they know and they do it out of love. I've had tough sponsors, I've had loving sponsors, but I've always had those that cared about me and my sobriety and becoming another person who would also sponsor people to pass the message on. So I've been in sponsorship. I've been in service all my life. In AA, I love doing things for my program, for my meetings. Sometimes I didn't. Oh, I gotta tell you, my one real funny. The coffee maker. I thought the coffee maker was, a position of honor, and I thought, well, why can't I make me the coffee maker? And they said, okay, we'll show you how to do it, and you can be the coffee maker at the next meeting. So, yeah, but you have to get here an hour early. I said, what? You got to come an hour early. Okay. So I got there, and of course I put the decaf in the wrong pot, and I didn't put the pot under when the water's coming out, and I didn't put enough water in. I mean, a mess. It was a mess. There was water all over, coffee all over, in the wrong things. And so, at loving and kind way that they were, after the end, and bless their hearts, they drank the stuff, and it was horrible. And at the end of the meeting, one of the guys came and said, we got another thing for you to do. You did a great job, but we've got something else maybe you could do. And don't you used to bake things, like cakes or brownies or something? And I said, oh, yeah, I could bake brownies. And they said, oh, good. That's that. Why don't you start baking brownies for every meeting at the home group? And I said, okay. So, and that was great because I come home from teaching and I try to eat. And then I would make these brownies because I'd be still shaking so bad sometimes. And between the time I got home to the time I got picked up for a meeting, I was making brownies. So it kept me busy. So they come and oh, God bless them. You people really love us drunks that are trying to sober up. And I take these brownies, okay, and the batch would be like, one time it'd be like hockey pucks. You try to get them out of the pan, and they dunk them in the coffee cup and then gnaw on them, get them soft enough that they can gnaw and eat on them. Or I'd have it where it was like pudding and you'd have to spoon them out, spoon them into a cup and eat it. And they keep saying, oh, Kathy, you just keep coming back. We need those brownies. Not knowing and that they love me. And then one day, one of the girls came from another meeting and she had been coming and coming. She said, Kathy said, I'll be so glad when you really get sober and can learn how to make those damn brownies. And I said, okay, I'll just keep coming back till I learn how to do it. And I got really good at brownies. That's the love, it's the little things that AA does that you don't looking back on it now, I see how spectacular it was because they were doing things that helped me want to do what you do. And I did. I worked the first 3 steps very quickly. I knew that I was powerless over alcohol in my life. I knew that, but even now, my life is still unmanageable. So I still have to take one. The second step says, came to believe power greater than myself, restore me to sanity. I learned that, yeah, I am insane. I was insane. I can still be insane if I don't do the things that I've been taught and count on the God that I understand. And the third step, I turn my will and my life over to the care of God every single day, every single morning. I believe the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is God-given. I believe that he inspired our founders to write the words, and that I still have learned to read the book, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, page by page, line by line, word for word. I'm going through it with some other people in different groups. I go to big book studies, and I know that it works because I'm still here and I still have a purpose. When you get older, for you youngins, you say, well, what is there more to it? There sure is. There's a whole world out there, and Zoom has shown us there's a whole world waiting to be helped. We have a lot of alcoholics that haven't gotten here yet, and our God that I know wants us out there. There's the big book that says that the fields are ripe, but the laborers are few. And I try to be one of those laborers. AA was what made it possible for me to go back to church. I had left my church. I became an Episcopalian. And, you go up to the altar and you have the host and the cup. And there were some Sundays this was when I was still drinking and still going to church. I only went to church so I could go up, and God has forgiven me and the priest has too. I'd go up there and I'd drink the whole chalice of wine down because I had to have a shooter until I could get to the store and get another bottle of wine. And I've had to make amends. The interesting thing about the God that I have and know he also has a sense of humor. He made it possible for me to become what is called a Eucharistic minister. And a Eucharistic minister, one of the chores is to serve at the altar and to present the cup to people, to the people that come. And I don't drink a drop of it. I don't even smell it. I thought that would be a problem. I don't even smell it. Alice said, you just have God took it away. I don't. Do I want to tempt myself? No. It's an entirely different thing. It's a holy thing. And he's allowed me to go back there. One Sunday morning, I was sitting in church. No, I got to tell you this first story. I became a member of a guild, women's guild, and we were sitting in the circle, and I was new. And we went around the circle, and it got to me, and they were introducing themselves. And I said, I'm Kathy, and I'm an alcoholic. And the room went dead silence. And then everybody started applauding because they knew that I'd had a problem with it for years, and I was there. I helped to start a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in that church. And we're still struggling right now with the COVID, but we're still hanging on. We've opened up again for a little bit. But I was sitting in church one Sunday, and the ushers know me, and one of the guys came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "We've got a guy back here who wants to talk to somebody from Alcoholics Anonymous." They thought there was a meeting there. And I got up and went in the back, and then I took him out of the nave, and we went into another part of the church, a parlor, and we talked. And I'm not afraid to be able to be available to anybody, anywhere, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm one of the that's out there trying to do it. I wish I could do more. I used to do more. I don't do as much now. In the little time that's left for me, if you are new, I strongly suggest, number one is get the book, and then get a sponsor, and then get a place where they're teaching the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know there are groups that have it. There are some Zoom meetings I've been to that really teach the book. And there are some groups I've been to in Zoom that tell you what it means. No one needs to tell you what it means. They explain it. It's in the book. I think Rick told me you read the black print, not the white part of the book, right? And I'm still learning. I'm willing to be a student rather than the teacher. And they said, I would. The teacher will appear when the student is willing. And I understood that. I go back. I'm on my fourth big book now, because I mark it up and I underlined it and all that kind of good stuff. And I keep learning. It's a magic book for me. Different things I keep learning, and I'm so grateful for it. When I did my 4-step inventory, I did it by the 7 deadly sins because I didn't understand it. The second time I did it with the columns, and I've always done it by the year, doing each. My sponsor said, well, we need to do it again, and you do it in depth each month. I said, what do you mean do it in depth? She said, well, Kathleen, we make it easy for you. Okay. There are 12 months in the year, and there are 12 steps we need to work on. And I said, okay, so the first step is January. And the second step is February. And a lot of the groups do that. I'm so grateful that God knew we were going to need Zoom. I know I did, and I still do. I'm just overwhelmed that the God that I understand today does rule the world, and I keep praying he will take pity and mercy on all of us, and especially in a certain part of the world that needs help. There are a lot of alcoholics, and a lot of Christians need some help. Thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for making it possible for me to stay sober one more day. And that's about it today. I didn't go into all the nasties, but that's it. Thank you.